All right, well, I've got my computer, I've got my coffee, and hopefully third time's a charm. Welcome to the intro to Hyper-V. If you're new to Hyper-V, welcome. If you're not new to Hyper-V and you've been using it before, I'll hopefully have a couple little tips and make you go, well, that's what that was for. Or that's how I do that. For starters, let's get into Hyper-V. Now, just type in Hyper, the start menu here, and I can pin this to my taskbar. There it is, pinned to my taskbar. So this is the Hyper-V manager. By default, it's going to wind up connecting to whatever machine that you have. Just to give you an idea of my setup, I'm running exactly the same build and exactly the same version of Hyper-V that you guys are all using in the lab. Now, it winds up connecting, and here we are. This is the machine. Everything's all good to go here. Now, I'm just going to wind up talking a little bit about the configuration on stuff here. So, Hyper-V Manager, what this does is this is your primary interface to get into Hyper-V and how you manage your virtual machines. So let's start off with the interface. Here's our connection. Here's some virtual machines that I have. Here's my checkpoints for the different virtual machines, if I have them. And if my virtual machine was turned on in this thumbnail, I'd wind up seeing a screen representation here. Now, here I can tell that this VM is generation 1, its configuration is 8.0, and this configuration is 8.2. 8.2 is the current one that we have here in the NOS lab. Here I can see what kind of memory I have, and as far as networking goes, I can see my network adapters here. Here are some of the actions that I can perform. I can do a quick create, I can do a new virtual machine, I can import a virtual machine. Here's the general Hyper-V settings. And here we see default locations for things. If I have a physical graphics unit, I can select which one I want. NUMA spanning, that is a virtualization feature that allows you to fine-tune exactly how you want your CPU and memory to work on its system. Storage migrations, I can do two simultaneous migrations or more if I want to. Enhanced session policy mode, you're going to want to make sure that that's enabled. By default, that's normally turned off, but we want that enabled. Keyboard, use on the virtual machine, use on the virtual machine when running only on full screen, or use the physical computer only. Mouse release key is Control Alt left and left arrow. And session mode, use it if available, and reset the checkboxes, and that puts everything back to normal. Some of the other settings, Virtual Switch Manager. Okay, so here's one that gets a little bit confusing after a while. We have 3 different types of switches, and out of those 3 types, we have an external, we have an internal, and a private. And just to explain what's going on here, 3 different types of switches. Private is VMs only can communicate amongst themselves if they're plugged into the private switch. If they're plugged into an internal switch has the VMs communicating with one another and also with your host. If you go external, the VMs are connecting directly to your external network, just as they would if they were an actual machine plugged into your network. Now, here's one of the little quirks. I'm going to go and create a new virtual switch here. And I'm going to creatively name this new switch. On a private network, and go OK. Great. Here's the quirk. If I go back into the switch manager, I now have 4 new switches called new switch. It's very, very common that you, because you have the ability to create your own switches. People wind up calling their own new switch. And the VM, you can put that onto any switch you want. I go to settings, I go to my network adapter. So which new switch am I actually plugged into? If I'm plugged into this one, that's great. If all my other VMs are plugged into this new switch, this VM is not going to communicate with the VMs that are in this switch because these are actually all different switches. Microsoft, in its infinite wisdom, wouldn't put in new switch 1, new switch 2, new switch 3, new switch 4. By default, you can put in whatever name that you want. So be very, very careful you're actually connected into whichever switch that you want. That one. And network adapter. To make sure that I've got this one on private network. Going to the virtual switch manager. As simple as that. Virtual SAN manager. If I had a $1,000 fiber channel card plugged into my host machine here and a multi-$1,000 switching network, then I could use this. I don't, so I can't. So I'm not. Some of the other features that I have here that I can get into is I can edit my disk, I can inspect the disk, stop the Hyper-V service, I can remove the server entirely, which is this thing here, which is akin to removing the Hyper-V feature from this machine. Here, specifically on this virtual machine, I can go connect, I can edit my settings, I can upgrade my configuration, I can start it, I can go to checkpoints, I can revert, I can move, I can export, all the rest of that stuff. Okay, so now let's do the 3 different ways that you can get a virtual machine up and running on Hyper-V. First off, I'm going to import a virtual machine. Test folder on my desktop. I conveniently put my source in my source. Just highlight the virtual machine folder. You don't have to go into it. As a matter of fact, it's preferable if you don't. Selected that folder, that's my source. Now, destination. Here. Make sure that you copy the virtual machine and create a new unique ID. If you have a couple of different courses that are running in the lab, you could have a whole bunch of RWDC01s. If you have 2 sections, you can have them named server 01, server 02, server 03, so on and so forth. You want to make sure that the one that you're importing in is unique to you, so you can use it. If you don't select that, it's going to wind up overwriting the other student's virtual machine, or worse. Now, store virtual machine in a different location. I'm just going to show you what winds up happening here. So I've got a destination folder. Select that. Okay, so virtual machine configuration is going to that folder. Checkpoints are going to that folder. Smart paging, it's all going to that folder. And here, this is where I want it to be. I click next. Now watch what happens here. Everything winds up going to the destination here. If I have 5 virtual machines, what I'm going to wind up with is a whole bunch of hard disks that are here. And you could have hard disks on servers that are cloned that have the same name. It just turns into a real mess. So you want to avoid doing this and compartmentalize things. How do we do that? Cancel that. That cleans up that. Using the new folder. I'm going to call this back import. Source is going to be my source. My select. Remember the unique ID. Next. Or in a different location. I'm going to store it here. I've got two ways of doing that. I can simply click on this and go copy, or select the folder this way here through the browser. I'm just going to copy this over. Next. And location, once again, I put it here. Here's my final check. So, got a new unique ID. It's going exactly where I want it to go. I'm done. Now it's going to wind up copying things over. And it's putting it exactly in the folder I want. And in my destination, here's where I'd wind up putting my UDCs or VMs. Folder called LinkedIn. Now, while that's going, I'm going to go to virtual machine. Next, I'm going to call this LinkedIn because I've created. And I'm going to store this virtual machine in a different location from the default. I'm going to select the LinkedIn folder I just created. It's going to be a Generation 1 VM. I'm only going to give it a gig of memory because I'm stingy. And use dynamic memory for this virtual machine. When you use dynamic memory, it's floating. Uh, it can go up to a maximum of 10.4, but if it's only using 512 megs of RAM, that's all it's going to wind up using it, and that releases some memory for your other VMs that are up and running. And as it needs more memory, it'll take more memory up to 1024. Which, private network, here's where I create the hard disk. Now, by default, it's 127 gigs. Once again, I'm stingy. I'm going to get 40 gigs. Next, and here's where I select and install media. I can either put it in an operating system later, so I've got this framework already set up, or I can install from an ISO file. So I'm going to select an ISO, and here, under my source, I've got my Windows 10 installed ISO. Next. Okay, so Generation 1, gig of memory, it's not going to be plugged into the private network. Here's my hard disk and the operating system. Alright, so it's done its other job, and we're all set. So the import happened, and the import here on -DC1, and you'll note I now have two on -DC1s here. Which one of these are mine? Here's how you can check. Right click on it, you go settings, pick your hard drive, and UDC, this is mine. And just to keep track of it, I'm going to rename this. So right click, rename, call this UDC. And there we go. I can connect this new DC, and I can start it up. And now it's booting off the ISO file. Oh, that's my controller, sorry. All right. So here's one thing I'd like to point out to everybody here. This is a remote desktop window. And by default, most people will take a look at this, go connect, and not actually pay attention to what's going on here. Here I can set my screen size. So for this particular VM, I'm setting it to 1280 by 720. And let's take a look at show options here. Now, here, under local resources, I can send the audio from my VM to my host machine, or vice versa, and local devices and resources. So here, I can share my printers out, I can share my clipboard out. If I select more, I got other things I can put in here. What can I put in here? Well, I can select my C drive, my physical DVD drive. This here is a SSD, or drives I can plug in later. And here, I just put plug and play. And if I plug in a pen drive or a thumb drive in my host machine, then my VM actually has access to it from here. So you can copy files back and forth. Okay, so my domain controller is up and running here. Here's something in Hyper-V that Microsoft has done to make sure that this version of Hyper-V does not get used to run a business server environment. Let's mouse down over here. You can see here that the network adapter says unidentified network with no internet access. Well, it's on a private switch, we know that, but the domain controller should at least recognize its own domain. Here's how we fix that. Go into the adapter settings, disable this, and we'll re-enable it. And ta-da! It now recognizes it's part of the ADATEM network. Considering it's a domain controller for ADATEM, that's a good thing. Make sure that you set this up every time you fire up the VM. If you don't, you're going to wind up with all kinds of weird DNS errors, and server not found, and all sorts of just bizarre, weird behaviors. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. This is what you're going to wind up having to do every time. Make sure you do it. Let's go over here. Try this. If this works, I should get the installation screen, which I do. Install Windows 10. Now, one thing I should point out here, what I showed you to allow USB drives to be used within your VM and stuff, what you have to do is you have to go into your Hyper-V settings, and your enhanced session mode, you have to make sure that this is checked on. By default, it's checked off. So once it's checked on, you'll have the ability to take care of this stuff. And here, you go to settings on your virtual machine, integration services. Okay. Here, I'm going to select guest services. By selecting this guest services, that allows the communication to go out to the local hard drives and stuff. Install. It, there you go. It is now installing Windows 10. Oh, that's going on. Let's switch over to our DC here. Oh, I've got my DC up and running. And talk about checkpoints for a moment. Now, right here, I don't have any checkpoints, so let's create one. Checkpoint. Oh, we're creating a checkpoint. Now, checkpoints will revert your VM to a specific point in time, not a backup, but it's a quick way of restoring things. Now I have this. Let's make a change here. Desktop background. Better yet, background. Solid colors it is. What's something visible? Background purple. We made a change. We create another checkpoint. Now, while this is creating, one thing I'd like to mention with servers for your checkpoints would probably be a really, really, really good idea for everybody to follow is servers. When you make the checkpoints, make sure that everything's turned off. If you have to revert your servers to a different point in time, having them all synchronized will prevent a whole bunch of grief. We got this new one, and let's rename this. All right. So what's going to wind up happening here is because it's going to be booting from the DVD again, uh, is it's going to restart the whole installation process. I've already done this, so I really don't need to do this again. Here, now I can go back to here. Apply. Now I can create a checkpoint and apply, or just apply it. Apply it. Okay. And when I log back in, this is going to be prior to me changing the desktop background, so it's going to go back to its normal background. I'll log in. There we go. We've gone back in time to when we originally started this virtual machine. Let's say that wasn't quite what we wanted to do. Here, for a new desktop, apply. Now, create checkpoint and apply. What that's going to wind up doing is creating a brand new checkpoint down here and go to that. But here, we just want to go to the new desktop and we'll apply that. Connect. Once we log in, we should get that hideous purple background. Also going. And there we go. We're back to our hideous purple background. Now, here's one of the other things that we can do. Shut this down. Oh, so let's say I want to move the DC to a new location. And I want to move it to this migration folder. I click on it, click move. I'm going to move everything. All the virtual machine data to a single location. Now it's moving all the files. And after this is completed, it will not be in the destination folder anymore. It will be running another migration. Okay, so the move is done. Let's take a look on here. And voila. You'll note it threw everything in here just like the did when I originally showed you what happens with the location source. So keep things neat and tidy. Make sure you move everything into its own separate folder. Successful. There we go. Out of the way. Let's see how Windows 10 is doing. Okay. Now, once we get to the desktop on our Windows 10, we're going to go into settings. Have the installed DVD mounted. We're going to uncheck that. So there's not going to be one. Using Beam, go to the BIOS. It's always going to want to boot from the CD first. You don't want to reinstall Windows on top of itself. Just a waste of time. Here, once again, show options, resources, more. Oh, this is the drive. So the drive I'm sharing, here it is. It appears as a network drive. Shut this down. I don't have this anymore, so I'm going to wind up deleting it. This one here. Shut this one down too. All right. So here, got a new DC, and let's say somebody in your lab. We'll cover the third way of doing this. So somebody isn't paying attention in the lab in another class, and they see that and they go, I'm going to delete this. Oh, great. That was your domain controller. How do you get this back? Well, we're going to go to new virtual machine. Next. Again. Uh, One, 1024, private network. Here's where it gets a little different. We're going to use an existing virtual hard disk migration folder. Select our virtual hard disk. Now, if that worked, there we go. So if somebody accidentally deletes a VM on you, that's how you can get it back. Okay, that's up and running. And here's our server with the hideous purple background. Now let's say we really, really want to get rid of this. Shut that down. Off. Now let's take a look in here. Here's everything from that move that we performed. And we're going to go delete. Are you sure you want to delete all the selected virtual machines? Yes. Oh, look here. This is what I was talking about with other people not paying attention. When you delete your own VMs, it still leaves everything behind. So what you have to do is you wind up physically having to delete them off the hard drive, which is why I'm recommending to you guys strongly that if you have two or more VMs, you install them directly into the folders and you name these folders exactly what those VMs are. That way there, you're not going to wind up accidentally deleting something that you shouldn't have deleted. Now, one final note I want to make about snapshots. You may be sitting there thinking to yourself, hey, great, after every step, I'm just going to do another snapshot, another snapshot, another snapshot, another snapshot. You really don't want to do that because every snapshot that you take winds up taking some additional disk space. And if you have 5 or more servers, another class has 5 or more servers, another class has 5 or more servers, and everybody's taking snapshots, it'll fill up the hard drive. That's not good. So be very conservative with the snapshots that you have and delete any ones that you don't need. Now, we're going to cover something probably would fall under stupid VMware tricks. There are a couple of labs and a couple different courses where you actually have to install Hyper-V on a VM running in Hyper-V, which is Inception. Here's a couple tricks to get that to actually work, if we're lucky. First off, on this server, you have to do a couple of things. So we go to settings, okay, and the network adapter, go under advanced features. You have to enable MAC address spoofing. If we don't do that, the Hyper-V virtual switch manager in your VM will not work properly because the way that the switches work, go back to our model here, is it's using MAC address spoofing to spoof the actual physical MAC address with one that it's given here. The other thing that we have to take care of is memory. I'm going to have to shut this VM down here. In order to do this. The one thing that you cannot use if you have Hyper-V running in Hyper-V is dynamic memory. You have to turn that off. So it's using its 1024. Let's bump this up to 2048. Now those prerequisites out of the way. We'll log into our VM. Okay, so we've adjusted the networking, we've adjusted the memory. Let's go to manage, go add roles and features, and we'll select Hyper-V. Oh, 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 here's the trick. It doesn't work through the GUI. What you're going to wind up having to do is you're going to have to do it through PowerShell. You're going to have to run it as administrator. What we have to do here is enable. Okay, what this is a manual way of installing packages from the command line using PowerShell instead of using the GUI. So enable Windows optional feature, online feature name, Microsoft Hyper-V. We want all the tools, and we specify we don't want the system to restart after it's done. No errors, life is good. Now we're probably going to want the Hyper-V tools, just in case they haven't installed. Okay, so that means that everything. All right, so we already have it. Down here, clustering, or put in multipath.io. We're going to be using multipath. Point, we're going to restart the computer. We restart computer command. Now this is going to want to reboot a couple of times, so we'll just pick it up once we get back to the desktop. Alrighty, well, we're back to the desktop, and lo and behold, Hyper-V, it's installed. Let's see if we can connect to it. Hyper-V Manager, and we go. Well, not actually going to put anything in here. Just later. And there we go. Our nested VM. Well, that about does it for this. So, on to the next video.